Hey freaks, it's JJ. Welcome to my channel where I talk about rock and metal music. So if you've been subscribed to this channel for any length of time, you've probably noticed a trend, and that is that I talk a lot about progressive metal bands. And so today I'm going to be talking about 6 reasons why I think progressive metal is the best metal subgenre. Before we get started, make sure you hit subscribe to this channel to get notified when I put out new content such as this. Also, hit me up down in the comments and let me know what other videos you want me to do. I do take suggestions. So number 1, this one might be kind of a cop-out, but whatever, I'm gonna explain it to you anyway. So number 1 is progressive metal encompasses like a wide variety of styles and subgenres within itself. And so you can have like traditional progressive metal, progressive death metal, progressive doom metal, progressive sludge metal, on and on and on. And so it's like just the biggest range of styles. And maybe it could be argued that progressive metal may not even be a metal subgenre. It might just be like a classification. But for the argument of this video, I'm just going to go with progressive metal is a metal subgenre. And so you can have bands from like Queensryche and Arian to bands like Neobliviscaris and Rivers of Nile. There's just so many styles within the genre of progressive metal, and I think there's something that fits every mood, every setting, and I think even, despite whatever metal subgenre you traditionally tend to gravitate towards, like let's say if you are like a deathcore kid, I think you can find a band within the progressive metal genre that's gonna fit what you like as well. So I think pretty much every metalhead can find a prog band that they enjoy. So that's reason number 1. Reason number 2 is concept albums. I could probably just stop the video right now because I think all of you guys probably know I love concept albums. Based obviously on the content of my YouTube channel. But concept albums are the best. And if you want to know why concept albums are far superior to regular albums, I did a whole video on it. You can find it up here, you can find it at the end of the video, you can find it down in the description. Watch that if you want to listen to me talk about how much I love concept albums. But basically, I know not every concept album comes from a prog band, and not every prog band comes out with concept albums. But for the most part, I think concept albums tend to be kind of a staple of the progressive metal subgenre. And so basically, anytime you can add a story element to music, I think that's just going to make it so much more interesting, so much more impactful, and just so much better, basically, in my opinion. Moving on to point number 3, musicianship. So not only are progressive metal musicians talented as fuck, but from all the like jumping around with different timings and the technicality that is required to be a musician in a progressive metal band, it's all very impressive. But most of all, I think prog musicians tend to be the most creative, in my opinion. And I would even go so far as to say like progressive rock and progressive metal is like the most creative music genre out there right now. Prog musicians tend to be like pioneers of like new and interesting sounds. They're always like reaching for something more, discovering something new, exploring and playing with new sounds. And I think like even entire subgenres like within the prog subgenre has sprung up from like trying to explain these weird and different sounds. So pretty much the prog genre is like a catch-all for creative weirdness and just a ever-expanding place for people to explore new things and come up with new and interesting ways of making music. And that kind of segues me right into reason number 4, which is prog is constantly changing. And I think it's kind of like untethered to like any expectation for it to be a certain way. Because progressive metal is like constantly changing and evolving, I don't think it'll ever get stuck in this rut of like musical cliches. Prog bands are always, again, looking for new ways to innovate and create something fresh to bring to the music industry. And because it's so hard to define and so nebulous at times, I don't think it'll ever be constrained to have to fit within the box of progressive metal. I think it's an ever-changing box. It's not going to force anyone to have to stick to certain rules and cliches in order to be like a prog band. Reason number 5 is that progressive metal is dynamic. It has swells, highs, lows, builds, and it sets itself apart, I think, from a lot of other metal subgenres because it has a difference in intensity at times. Like if you could look at like technical death metal, which I love, I think technical death metal is great, but sometimes it's always cranked up to like an 11 the whole entire time. There's no breaths, no valleys and peaks, no dynamic to its sound. It's just all the way up there the whole time. And someone who explains this really well is Mike from Become the Night. If I can find the video where he talks about it, I'll link it down in the description. But he basically, it boils down to the point that having dynamic in music is what really makes the highs seem higher, the lows seem lower. It has more of an impact, so to speak. So, like, though it can be really impressive from, like, an ability and stamina standpoint to be going at, like, 500% the whole time for a whole album, for a whole set, I don't think that, like, I think if it stays at that chaotic intensity for too long, your brain kind of starts to get used to it, and it's not going to have the same effect. It's going to be less impactful than if you were to have, like, an empty section that comes and builds up to some kind of chaotic craziness, or, you know, if it had more dynamic to it. I think that's where it appears that the music has more body, is more lively. And so some of my favorite things, I'm just going to list some of my favorite things that happen in progressive metal. One is like a slow build to a big payoff. And I think the masters of this is really Tool. They've just figured out how to do this so well. It just starts off so slow, and maybe you're like, okay, where's this going? It's really slow. But then it builds and builds and builds, and then just at the top just really hits you hard. So another thing I like is like a really slow, empty section, and then all of a sudden, no build, but just like suddenly hits you in the face with a bunch of chaotic craziness. A band that does this really well is Neobliviscaris, I think. Another thing that I really like is just a really like sick bass line that serves as kind of like your anchor to hold on to in the midst of like a crazy storm of like assaulting double bass and like insane guitar chaos going on all around you. And a band that does this really well is Beyond Creation. I just love the bass in Beyond Creation. I think I'm definitely not alone in that. And then like the last thing that I just love in prog music is whenever like the song starts off in like regular 4/4 timing and then it suddenly or slowly switches to 3/4 timing or 6/8 timing. I don't know why, I love 3/4 timing and 6/8 timing. It just like hits me right in the feels for some reason. And so like again, another band that does this is Neobliviscaris, which is one of my favorite bands of all time. If you haven't heard of them, you should definitely check them out. But anyway, so those are just some of the like interesting and fun things that I think progressive metal music does that not a lot of other metal genres do. I'm aware that some of them probably do a lot of these things as well, but I think you're going to find most of the things I just listed within the progressive metal subgenre. So that brings me to reason number 6, why I think prog metal is the best metal subgenre, and that is because it is, to me, more emotionally moving. And because of the way that prog is like designed to always keep you, the listener, guessing, I think it really has more of an emotional impact. And then if you kind of combine that with like a story element, like a concept album, it doesn't get any better than that. I think like the builds and the timing changes and the sections of emptiness and then the chaoticness of it, like the soft beauty of like the melodies juxtaposed by the madness of all the other instruments going on, is just moving to me. I think, in my opinion, the whole point of music or art in general is to convey a message or emotion and to make the audience feel something. So I think whatever you're going to argue is your favorite, like, music, doesn't have to be metal, just anyone out there, if they're arguing that one genre of music or one band is better than all the rest, it's because it makes them feel something. And I think when music or art, just in general, makes you feel something, that's when you know it's successful. And so prog just makes me feel more. It just has more, I have more of an emotional connection to it than any other subgenre out there. And that's definitely not to say that I don't like other metal subgenres. I definitely do. Like, I love deathcore, I love regular melodic death metal, I love just plain rock music, I like power metal, I like them all, basically. And that might be also why I like prog so much, because it encompasses so many different styles. But I think prog just does it for me emotionally, and that's why, for me, it is the best metal subgenre. So hopefully I got through this whole video without sounding too overly pretentious or elitist. Anyway, let me know what your guys' favorite metal subgenre is down in the comments. I love to hear about it. Do you agree, disagree with my argument? Let me know. Also, I do take suggestions for other videos that y'all want to see. Let me know down in the comments what else you want me to talk about, rock and metal related. And then also don't forget to hit subscribe to this channel if you want to get notified when I put up other content such as this. If you want to join my Metalhead community, then follow the link down in the description and get access to bonus content and behind the scenes information, as well as a monthly newsletter of weirdness. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And until next time.